This tutorial video will walk through the small business application process for the Michigan Small Business Survival Grants. The grant program will provide up to $20,000 for an eligible business that has been closed, or up to $15,000 for an eligible business that has been partially closed or is otherwise open. Grant funds may be used for certain eligible expenses, including working capital to support payroll expenses, rent or mortgage payments, utility expenses, and costs related to reopening a business. This video assumes that you represent a business that is eligible to apply. If you need additional information on what eligibility criteria is, please visit michiganbusiness.org/survival to review all eligibility requirements in advance of completing this application. If you have a question on this program or its eligibility requirements, please contact the MEDC call center at 888-522-0103. You may select option 1. Call center hours are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and are closed for lunch from noon to 1 p.m. During lunch hours, callers may leave a voicemail. You may also send an email to medceconomic@michigan.org. The Michigan Small Business Survival Grant is not first come, first serve. Once the statewide application closes, applications will be distributed to the local economic development organizations, or EDOs, based on the county of the business location for which you are applying. EDOs will be responsible for reviewing and approving and ultimately awarding and dispersing grant funds under sub-grants to the selected eligible businesses. The local EDOs have the ability through this program to apply their own local priorities and criteria for their grant review and selection process. The local EDO has the right to award a grant amount less than the grant dollar amount requested. Small businesses will access the application through michiganbusiness.org/survival. A couple of important things to mention about the application process. First, physical copies or emailed copies of this application will not be accepted. The application window opens at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, January 19th, and the application window will close and no longer be accessible at noon on Friday, January 22nd. The application portal, called ConnectSpace, will only allow a certain number of applicants to complete the application at one time. This prevents the system from overloading, running slower, and potentially crashing. If a business clicks Apply Now from michiganbusiness.org/survival, one of two things may happen depending on the current capacity of the application platform, ConnectSpace. First, the business may be sent directly to the ConnectSpace application platform to begin the application immediately. If the ConnectSpace platform has reached its bandwidth limit, businesses will be directed to a web page that acts as a queue. The queue process is in place to make sure that the ConnectSpace platform does not experience any downtime. As applications are completed and submitted in ConnectSpace, businesses waiting in the queue will be let in. This happens as a seamless process for the business, and there's no need to refresh your browser. In fact, do not refresh your browser. Businesses may opt to enter their email address to receive an email as to when their place in the queue is nearing being let into the application portal. Businesses will have 15 minutes to return and enter the portal, or they will lose their place in line. Once you're on the web page, michiganbusiness.org/survival, you'll see the button that says Apply Now. Click Apply Now. This link will open the window to the MEDC's online ConnectSpace application for the Michigan Small Business Survival Grant. Applications will only be accepted through this system. The application will look like this. First of all, please read through all of the program details. This information states many important details, including those related to program eligibility. Before you begin your application, please be aware that you will not be able to save your application and return to it later. With that said, you will be able to submit your application and later log back in and edit your application if absolutely necessary. You will only be allowed to make edits while the application window is open, so please make any corrections by noon on Friday, January 22nd. To prepare for completing the Michigan Small Business Survival Grant application, businesses will need both financial and employment information readily available. This includes historical gross revenue figures and current gross revenue figures. Review the questions under business operations and employment information to fully understand the questions being asked so that you can gather this information in advance of completing the application. As an applicant, now that I've read through all of these program details, I'm going to go back up to the top of the page, look in the top left-hand corner, and click Forms. By clicking Forms, the Michigan Small Business Survival Grant Program Forms page opens. Again, this lists additional program information, and at the bottom here, I'm going to click Start. The next page continues to share information about the program details. And at the bottom here, you'll see that you will have to create or find your account to access the grant application. If you've previously applied for one of the MEDC programs that have used this platform, including the Restart program or the Pure Michigan Small Business Relief Initiative program, you may already have an account, but you're going to want to enter your email address to get started. In order to create the account, I will add my first name, last name. I am not required to put in my phone number, and then I will add a password. And confirm that password and click Create an Account. The next thing I have to do is add or search my company name. Which comes up. If my business name does not automatically come up, you will just type in your address. Add location, just like this. I'll add location and request to join company. Now that I have registered my business and myself on the ConnectSpace platform, I will be taken to a page that'll show the application instructions. The application contains 7 sections: business information, business contact information, business operations, employment information, use of funds, other information, and application certification and submission. Please read through these instructions to help you have a better understanding of the grant process. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about the business eligibility requirements here, and then you get into the application. The first section is the business information section. This includes identifying the legal name of your business, listing the DBA or trade name if you have one, and indicating the owner's name and mailing address. The next section is the business location information. Here you're going to be entering the street address of the physical business location for which this application is being submitted. There's a question here that you will need to select the county of physical business location for which application is being submitted. This is a drop-down menu. I do want to stress that this is very important to make sure that you list your accurate county here. Applications will be sorted by counties, and you are definitely going to want to make sure that this has been identified correctly. There are a couple of questions about who the primary contact is. Again, this is very important information that this is entered correctly. You are going to want to make sure that the person who is responsible for receiving and administering the grant contract from the EDO and other materials that are required is going to be this individual, and you're going to want to make sure they have accurate information here as contact. Definitely want to make sure that the email address is entered correctly as well as their phone number. The next section talks about business operations. First, you will need to identify what industry your business is in. There are a number of broad general categories that do tie to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services gatherings and face mask order. If your business is not part of one of these broad categories, there is an other option, and then you can specify the industry that your business is in. The next few questions are pretty self-explanatory, asking what type of entity you are. Is your business a franchise? Has your business experienced a financial loss due to the COVID crisis and the gatherings and face mask order? The next part here talks about business operations, and I want to point out that these questions may take a little research prior to completing the application. The question here relates to annual gross revenues for 2019, for 2020, and then the application will ask for your gross revenue for the period of October 1st through October 31st, 2019, the gross revenue for that period in 2020, gross revenue for November 2019, gross revenue for November 2020, gross revenue for December 2019, gross revenue for December 2020. Also, just for clarification, gross revenue is defined as all income from sales or services rendered. Do not deduct any expenses. When completing these questions on revenue, please only use numbers. You do not need to use a dollar sign. So for example, I'm putting in 15,775. I'm not even putting a comma, no decimal point, just the number. Following the questions on gross revenue, there's a question on how many years has your business been in operation. Couple of other pretty self-explanatory questions. Again, if you want a deeper dive into these, all of these questions are listed on our website. You can find them at michiganbusiness.org/survival. But I want to just kind of point out another one that might be just important to be aware of ahead of time in advance. We have a question kind of entering into our business operations section that talks a little bit about the amount of money your business may have received from other sources. So the question is, for the next, please provide the amount of all COVID-19 relief funding received from other local, state, or federal sources since March 1st, 2020. It's not necessary to identify the sources of support, only indicate the total financial amount. And if you've received none, you can enter none in the box. So for instance, if you've received a local grant, such as something that your EDO or your community has offered, put that number in total support from local sources. If you've received a state grant or loan, including Michigan Small Business Relief, Restart, Pure Michigan Small Business Relief Initiative, any of those, you're going to want to total that in this line. And then if you've received support from any federal sources, you're going to want to put that in this question right here. I want to talk a little bit about some of the employment questions that we are asking on this application. First of all, you're going to need to identify the total number of employees on payroll, which is going to be determined by head count. So it can include full-time, part-time, employee owners, at all of your locations on a worldwide basis, and you're looking at that number on who was on payroll on November 17th, 2020. That is one day prior to the gatherings and face mask order. So you are looking for this first question here, you're looking at all of your locations. If you're a business with only one location, you're only going to use obviously that location to determine your total number of employees. The next couple of questions refer to employment for the primary location in which your application is for. So again, if you have just one location, you're going to have the same number down here. But if you have multiple locations, you are going to want to put the total employment for the location using headcount, full-time, part-time, and an owner employee on November 17th, 2020. The next question asks, identify the total number of employees on payroll at the time of application. So the first question, going back to what was the total number of employees on November 17th, and this question here is the total number of employees today at the time of your application. Next, we're asking, identify the total number of employees that will be retained or rehired as a result of this requested grant. Finally, we are asking, what is the average hourly rate of employees that will be retained or rehired, if any, at this location as a result of the requested grant support? The next section of this application has questions that refer to use of funds. And I want to note that the local EDO that will be reviewing and prioritizing your application has the right to award an amount less than the amount requested. So the first thing you're going to answer is, what is the amount of the grant you are requesting? Remember that the maximum grant request is $20,000 for a business that has been closed, or up to $15,000 for a business that has been open or partially open. What will you be using the grant funds for? Are any expenses identified in the previous question necessary to continue or reopen business operations? Will the grant be used for expenses incurred between the period of November 18th, 2020 and April 30th, 2021, as required by the program guidelines? The next question we're asking is the business a live music or entertainment venue that is eligible for the Michigan Stages Survival Grant Program? If you are eligible for that program, you should be applying to the Michigan Stages Survival Grant Program. That's really important. If you're not eligible for that program, you are able to submit an application for this program. And then finally, we ask a number of questions related to signature and certifications. Once I get to the bottom of the application, I'm going to go back through and make sure that I put answered all of the questions, that all of my information is complete and accurate. And when I get to the end, I will hit submit. Applicants will get a confirmation email once the application has submitted. If you would like to see a copy of the application questions in advance of completing this application, they are included on our website, michiganbusiness.org/survival. As far as next steps, once the application window closes on January 22nd, all submitted applications will be sorted by counties and sent to the local economic development organizations for review and selection. If you have any questions on this program or its eligibility requirements, please contact the MEDC call center at 888-522-0103. You may select option 1. Call center hours again are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and are closed for lunch from noon to 1. During lunch hours, callers may leave a voicemail. You may also send an email to medceconomic@michigan.org.